In this presentation, we're going to think about Tom Heberlein's idea of the three fixes. In his book, Navigating Environmental Attitudes, Heberlein identifies three fixes that can be applied to solve different environmental problems. But these same fixes, I think, could arguably be applied to just about any kind of problem, and that's why I want to explore them here with you. The first is the technological fix, which we'll unpack each of these individually. The second is the cognitive fix, and the third, the structural fix. The first of the three fixes is the technological fix, and the main idea here is that any kind of problems that we're confronted with can be solved through innovation and the application of new technologies. And so within the community development area, it's a favorite among the technical assistance approach. Now, limitations of technological fixes include the fact that some technologies actually make things worse, not better, and even good technologies may be ineffective if they are incorrectly or inappropriately used. Moreover, the focus on technology often avoids or ignores the social aspects of change and development. So social input and social process under technological fixes is not considered. The second fix is what's called the cognitive fix, and the main idea here is that we will be convincing people to change their attitudes about some kind of issue so that they behave more appropriately, and consequently their behavioral change will solve whatever problem we're trying to address. So this is a very individualistic approach. It's not really something that community development or national development efforts could even successfully employ. And the limitation of an individualistic solution is that it's really hard, in this case, to change attitudes. You think about it, people develop attitudes out of their identity. You ask people to change their attitude, you're asking them to change how they define themselves to some degree, and that is really a tall order. And moreover, there's a fair amount of psychological research in particular that finds behavior itself, the way we act on a day-to-day basis, is not rooted very much in our attitudes. Now, they're not totally unrelated, but it's a mistake to think that simply by changing one's attitudes, their behavior will magically transform as well. So finally we come to the third fix, the structural fix within Heberlein's discussion. And the main idea here is that problems should be solved by changing the rules. Rules is a broad term. This can mean formal laws, policies, and so forth. But it could also mean informal social norms, the unwritten rules that are every bit as powerful, even if they're not necessarily in print. And so structural fixes are very attractive to those trying to create sweeping changes with one kind of movement of the pen, so to speak, right? So it's a favorite of the conflict, the self-help, and the appreciative inquiry approaches in community development. Limitation is that structural changes are often difficult to implement, particularly at higher levels of organization. And by that I mean, say, at federal level, state level, that kind of thing. Not quite as difficult at the community level. But it's probably the most effective strategy if it can be successfully pulled off. The key, I think, is to turn attention to the appropriate level of where change efforts should be engaged in. Now, individualistic change, that's a matter of, say, the content of self-help books, right? They're popular. Just go to a bookstore and look at how many titles there are in the self-help section. But the reality is when it comes to solving social problems such as poverty or, say, educational deficiencies or the literacy rate, individual solutions have just not been very effective. National and state level changes have been effective, at least where successful laws have been implemented, and they do affect large populations, but getting these changes in place is a slow, difficult process. President Obama use the metaphor of turning a large shipping container ship around in the ocean. Right? It takes a long time, but once it is turned around, it's there to stay for some time. The community level is kind of a go-between, as Wilkinson describes it in his book. Community level action can focus on structural rule changes that will affect just the local level. And while the number of people impacted is less, the ability to get structural change enacted is greater because there are fewer barriers.